Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We'll give you a couple of seconds to get connected to audio and let anyone else join today. If you want to, while we're waiting, introduce yourselves in the chat, share your name, your institution, and your role at your institution, that would be great. Perfect. So we'll get started. So good afternoon again. On behalf of Complete College America, I want to thank you for joining us today for the Kentucky Student Success Collaborative Student Basic Needs Support webinar series. That's a mouthful. My name is Melanie Harris, and I'm a strategy director at Complete College America. I have the honor of working with Kentucky and leading our work on the Student Basic Needs Support strategy. Before we get started, I wanted to go over a few quick Zoom tips. So first, the session is being recorded. You'll have access to the recording afterwards, and we'll be sharing a link with you directly. We ask that you please remain muted until we get to the Q&A section of today's webinar. Please use the chat box so you can share ideas, messages, comments, and questions. We'll be using that as we go through the panel later on today to filter out your questions, so feel free to send them along the way. Closed captioning is also available and can be toggled on at the bottom of your screen. So I would like to turn the microphone over to Lily Massa-McKinley, the Executive Director of the Kentucky Student Success Collaborative.
Thank you, Melanie. Hi, everyone. We're so glad that you could join us today. This is really the kickoff to our community of practice working on student basic needs. And the Kentucky Student Success Collaborative is a new initiative in Kentucky. We launched in October. We are a part of the Council on Post-Secondary Education. And really our mission is to help build the capacity of our campus partners to accelerate progress on student success. Through some of our earliest campus visits, student basic needs really rose to the top as one of the most important and pressing concerns that our campus colleagues were facing. And so that really helped guide the collaborative in identifying student basic needs as our first community of practice to initiate. And just really the premise of all of the work that we do is that we are all experts and we all bring incredible knowledge and experience that if only we could get together and share what we've learned, share what we've tried, share what we know not to do, that we'll all be able to advance much more successfully and effectively towards supporting our students in their achievement of their goals. So just a little bit about what the collaborative does. We offer communities of practice on the hot topics that our campus partners would like to convene around. We have just recently launched a new online platform called the Impact Exchange, which allows these communities to take the conversation online and just keep it going. So sharing ideas, sharing resources, asking one another questions, and getting that feedback from our colleagues across the state. We are also trying to embed this professional development opportunity. So in partnership with Complete College America, this is a 5-webinar series over February and March, where we're going to touch on various issues of student basic needs that were voted on at our first community of practice meeting in December as the top priorities of our campus partners. We are also facilitating a continuous improvement cycle with campuses that volunteered to participate in that. We had 7 campuses that were interested in December at our initial meeting. And so we'll be walking through kind of support for them to coordinate their student basic needs services and really move forward their student basic needs work, measuring impact, et cetera. And then within that community of practice, we're also kind of integrating some change leadership practices so that those teams that are working on the change will be able to be just much more successful as they move forward. So that is a little bit snippet of the work that we're here to do as the collaborative. I would love to introduce my colleagues, Dr. Beth Ann Pennington and Ms. Phyllis Clark, who are also, we're out there, we're trying to really connect with our campuses because campus voice is really what drives our agenda. So thank you all for being here today. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Melanie to kick us off.
Perfect. So you should be able to see my screen now. I wanted to start our webinar today with just a little bit of level setting of how does CCA or Complete College America define student success or student basic needs support. So if you're familiar with us, we do have 4 pillars of student success strategies: purpose, structure, momentum, and support. The student basic needs support strategy falls under the support pillar, addressing students' needs and removing those barriers for academic success. And so we've defined it by ensuring that students have everything they need to be successful. So access to food, housing, childcare, physical and mental health services, financial assistance, and transportation. So we make sure that, or we very stress the importance of having these things because students can't be successful without them. If they're worried about housing, food insecurity, getting to campus, who's taking care of their families, that is something that is the responsibility of the institutions to get rid of those barriers for students, or at least provide them with the support to be successful in those areas. So just a few quick statistics of where students are today. So 65% of the working class says that a bachelor's degree isn't worth it anymore. And we've seen that that's due to how much it costs, with the time that it takes. There are so many other things and priorities in our lives where college might not be the right answer right now. And so it's our responsibility to make sure that everything is in place for success. So 20 to 40%, there's a 20 to 40% higher unemployment rate for Latinx, Black, and Asian workers than for white workers, which means that these students are working harder. They're trying to make money, which can sometimes take them away from campus. So what can we do to support them in the ways to get them on campus and making sure they're successful, and also gaining money to support families and themselves? 3 in 5 students experience basic needs insecurity. So that is a huge percentage of our student population that we should be supporting. And about 48% of students are affected by housing insecurity. I've linked to a few resources here and can share those in the recap for you to dig into, but wanted to level set with, these are large groups of students we're talking about. It's not a one-off. There's students that you're talking to daily who we want to make sure that we're supporting, or at least making an environment where they're comfortable to share their concerns and what they're experiencing off of your campuses. The Post-Secondary Value Commission released this chart defining the student investment and all the things that we must consider as we're becoming students. It's not just tuition, it's not just room and board. There are so many other expenses that go into that. So how are we supporting students? What funds can we provide to students to help them with transportation, books and supplies, childcare on campus? What does that look like? But I like to share this chart because it really puts into perspective, it's not just textbooks, it's not just pens and paper that students are needing. It is everything impacts student success. And so this chart from the Hope Center shows the disparities and gaps between students who have indicated that they have student basic need insecurity versus race and ethnicity of students accessing those resources on your campuses. So the orange lines that you see on your screen, I'm sorry if it's a little blurry, the orange lines are students who have indicated any basic need insecurity at all, whether that's housing, food, transportation, childcare. The blue line is the percentage of students who are accessing those resources. And so you can see the discrepancy of everyone's not accessing the resources that exist, but it's our responsibilities to figure out, one, why, but also how to get those students in the door. And so all of this leads back to how we're supporting students in Kentucky. So I pulled your data through the Lumina Foundation of your attainment. So currently Kentucky's attainment is at 49.4%, and you have a goal of 60%. And so really supporting students holistically is one of the steps to get you there. And so you can see how you rank against the national attainment goal and where you fall. Unfortunately, Kentucky's a little bit below that national average right now, but I think through the work with the collaborative and these workshops and really supporting students in a different way, we'll be able to get there. And so just some things to consider. We'll be exploring a lot of these in future webinars, but just as we're here today, Thinking about how you're supporting your unique populations on campus. So do you have any programming, or is anyone talking to students who were previously in foster care, students who were formerly incarcerated, or the children of parents who were incarcerated? What do those supports look like? How are you reaching out to those students? Using data to understand the student population. So looking at your disaggregated data to see what is affecting which populations of students and filling the gap that way. We're huge advocates at CCA that data really tells the story and should drive decision making. And so making sure that you're pulling those numbers to really identify who you should be supporting. Raising awareness of resources is also very important. So as faculty, staff, leadership, key stakeholders on campus, we know the resources exist, but how is that being communicated to your students? And so making sure that everyone is informed, that advisors, coaches have a list of resources on their desk. So if a student mentions, I haven't had a meal, where do you send that student? What does that support look like? But just making sure that your faculty and staff know, but also your students are aware of that as well. We've seen a lot of campuses implementing a basic needs center or having a point person on their campuses who's most familiar with all the resources available on campus and within the community, so that's who you're referring students to work with them to make sure they have everything that they need. Lots of conversations about campus resources versus community resources. So do you need a food pantry on campus if there's one on the same block as your camp or if your university or college? But making sure that you have developed the relationships with those resources and established some type of partnership with your community resources, or using that to bring something onto campus to make it easy for students to access. I also like to stress the importance of walking students over to the resources that we're mentioning. So it's one thing to say, hey, there's something across campus, go over there when you leave my office, versus taking the time on your schedule to walk them over there, make those personal introductions to your friends and colleagues in other offices to make sure that students are getting that support that they need. Next is eliminating the stigma of accessing resources. So I previously worked on a college campus and would have students say, well, I didn't want to go in the food pantry because people would know I don't have food. And so how do we work as a community and as a campus to eliminate that stigma that this is just a resource on campus, just like tutoring and everything else that you can access, but that's on our responsibility as staff, faculty, and leadership members on campus. I've touched on establishing that basic needs center, or at least having the resources available. A small first step in that is having some type of web page or landing page on your campus website listing out those resources. So it's still that one-stop shop for students and faculty and staff, or anyone who's working with students, to go there and see everything that's available. They can click around and access those resources as you build up. I know it takes funding and budgets and a lot of things to hire someone or build a new center on campus, but that could be a small first step. Creating emergency loan programs or a basic needs fund. So it doesn't have to be an emergency. Students know and can anticipate what they'll need or know what they've been experiencing long before they came to our campuses. So how are we supporting them? What does that process look like? So to the next bullet, not having students perform their poverty. So if a student says, hey, I need a bus fare to get to campus to take my final, that process shouldn't take weeks. It should be fairly easy, fairly straightforward for the student. Them reaching out to you is enough. That's not an easy conversation to have. So just being mindful of what your application processes and decision processes look like. So I know that was a lot, but I wanted to get us started with some things to consider. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. We are joined today by some phenomenal student panelists from Kentucky colleges and universities. So I will stop talking and allow you all to introduce yourselves. If you could share your names, your major, what you're studying, and a little bit about yourselves. And I'll say the order we'll go in just to cue you up. So let's start with Daryl, then Chelsea, then Madeline. Thanks.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Daryl Parker. I'm a transfer student from Hazard Community Technical College. I'm at Moorhead now, working on my bachelor's for university studies. My main focus is on equity and inclusion, and so I'm pursuing something with higher ed. My thing is, I moved here to Eastern Kentucky several years ago. for some odd reason, some other people saw things in me I didn't see in myself. Since then, I've kind of hit the ground running as far as being very active within my community, trying to promote positive changes, not just for my family, but for the whole community as a whole, for future generations. Because I mean, I live here now, so this is my community also. So I'm trying to make a difference. That's a little bit about me.
Thanks, Daryl. Chelsea.
Okay, hi guys, my name is Chelsea Shields. I am currently attending Maysville Community and Technical College. I was here for dual credit classes while I was a junior and senior in high school. I'm currently majoring in nursing, wanting to apply for the RN program here at Maysville and then looking to transfer, hopefully to Moorhead, not really decided yet. While I'm here taking classes, I currently work in the enrollment center here as a student worker. So like any walk-ins that need help applying for classes, needing help with FAFSA. So like I do a lot of one-on-one interaction with a bunch of students that walk in.
Madeline.
Hi, everyone. My name is Madeline Banderman. I am a graduate student at Eastern Kentucky University, along with being our AmeriCorps Vista and education specialist for the Colonel's Cupboard, which is our on-campus food pantry. So I work a lot with our student workers here in our student life and first year experience office, which is where Colonel's Cupboard is housed under. So I work one-on-one with students that come in and use our resources. I was also a student worker here as an undergrad, so I have some experience being both a student, seeing kind of our resources that way, along with working one-on-one kind of more as a staff and professional role.
Perfect. Thank you. So my first question for y'all, you've all shared that you're doing more than just going to classes. So how has your campus supported all the things you're doing, working, taking courses? I know you have families and lives outside of that. So what does that support look like from your campus? And anyone can jump in.
I'll go ahead and go. Well, there's several people here at my campus where I'm at right now that are very supportive of the things I do within the community, because it's actually helping our campus as a whole. It's putting the word out there that we're here to help everybody, and it's showing other Black people like me that, you know, there are Black people here at Hazard Community Technical College, because our numbers are very small anyway. So like I mentioned before, I'm very active in the community and have a lot of support from the people here at HCTC, as well as other people, like I mentioned before, that saw things in me I didn't see in myself. And they kind of pushed me in the right direction. And like I said, I hit the ground running. I haven't stopped yet. And I'm very active in the community. And the college has been a major influence with those activities that I do. And I also work here in admissions. So I see a lot of people come in and out that has a lot of food insecurities and other things as well. So I try to help them with resources, and me being active in the community opens up those doors for those resources. So I can be like, hey, look, I'm gonna call so-and-so and we're gonna make this happen right now. And I get them right to where they need to be at, because I know the stigmata of being prideful, not wanting to ask for help. And sometimes you gotta pull them to the side and be like, look, we can make this happen without everybody knowing it. And it helps out a lot, you know, so that's me, you know.
Thank you.
Okay, the college here, there's just so many resources available. Like a bunch of students come in, they're first-time students, don't really know exactly how the college works, and like just being able to work here, and everyone that's in the enrollment center here at Maysville, they're all just wanting to help students, like anything that they need, all the resources that are available. I just learned so much more about those, and there really are a bunch of resources available that I didn't know about. Being able to work here in the enrollment center, I've learned so much more about those services. And I like to just, like if a student comes in, I just like push them to go talk to people, like go interact. Like there's just so many things here that I didn't know about and I do now.
I guess it was my sophomore year. We have like our Colonel Crew program, which is like first year leaders in a sense that welcome our first year students. So I participated in that, and that was really kind of a firsthand experience as an undergrad to be able to work facilitating like small group discussions with first year students, kind of hearing and seeing what resources, what they were afraid of, what they were looking forward to on campus. And so I really value those experiences as an undergrad and kind of transferring them into my role now, because it gave me some insight into what students are looking for resource wise, what they are concerned about, and ways that we can help support them here on campus. So being able to be in that leadership role has a really great impact on being able to share those resources. And during like our kernel crew training, we learned a lot about resources from professionals that were working here on campus where that was their specialty. So we had like one-on-one people coming in and saying, this is what we're doing, this is how we help support students. And then we're able to directly share that information. I think it's pretty powerful when it comes from like another peer as well. Instead of just someone that's like higher up in an office saying, hey, this is a resource, instead of a student saying, hey, this is something that I've either utilized myself, or of this resource, because it's more, I think it's more personal, being that it's someone that's kind of a peer versus someone that completed their 4 years or masters and is saying, hey, we're here to help you. And like, are you? Versus, a student that's kind of doing it with you.
We had a quick question in the chat asking, of course, you're all connected through student employment. Does your student employment program or the offices you work in connect you specifically with resources on your campus, or you've just learned from your experiences working in those offices?
I'll go ahead and speak. This is Daryl Parker again. With me, it was both. Because before I started in the role I'm in now, I was working for another office. I was the social media student liaison for the Office of Equity and Inclusion. So I learned for a lot of resources from that office, and I applied those same resources out in the community, and I kind of built like a little list myself. So it was like a learning experience for me. So I got, those resources from both places, not just from working at the college. So that's about me right there.
Perfect. So we talked a little bit earlier about removing the stigma. So you just talked about like a student referring a student to a resource and how that is more effective and more efficient. What are other ideas that you all have about how to remove that stigma of having your peers accessing different resources on campus?
I just talk about it. I just open that door to communication. Food insecurity is one of those things where it takes a little bit of, it's a pride thing, right? It's hard to admit that, you're struggling with food insecurity, but the reality is a lot of people are. That number is pretty high. I think a number that I have is 1 in 6 students struggle with food insecurity. I go into first year courses and talk about the Colonel's Cupboard. I have a whole PowerPoint. So being able to connect with our first year students, I think it's really powerful, because you're already starting a conversation and introducing them to a resource and just saying, hey, that's all it is, right? Like, you may not necessarily need it, but if someone else does, now you know of this resource available. So just kind of being able to talk about it in a very casual way, in a sense, but also ensuring that, so when students come into our office, any information that they're providing us is confidential as far as like the law allows, and stays within our office. So that's another way that can kind of help support students of saying, we're not going out there and sharing all of your information. That's remaining in our office. And then when students leave, like the bags that they take their food or clothing items in, don't say Colonel's Cupboard. So you're not announcing that. In fact, we've partnered with our bookstore that's in our same building, and we get bags from them. So when students are coming in and using our resource, they are coming out with a bag that looks like they could have just gone to the bookstore. So it's another way if we're just kind of reducing that stigma of coming in. But then as far as my side of things, I just talk about it and say, hey, this is a resource. So that's kind of a way I try to minimize that stigma, I guess, on my end.
I guess it's me again. I know I'm talking quite a bit, but one thing that I often notice that works is kind of just talking with the student that has some problems. You know, they need resources. I usually talk to them about it, and I share personal experiences with them, and then I connect them to the people, you know, outside of everybody else. You know, like I don't say anything in our office about the student needs help with this or the student needs help with that. I don't put them on blast like that. And it seems to work for a lot of students. You know, you build that trust with that student. So if something happens in the future, they know they can count on you. That's the one way that I approach it. I'd rather just do things like that. That way we can kind of keep it out of the spotlight, sort of say, and have that student still feel confident they can get the food and stuff they need.
I agree with Daryl on that. Like a lot of the time, like when a student comes in and talks to me, I think it's like really like interactive with that student when it's on a level of like student wise, like I'm a student talking to another student. Like just saying like my past experiences, like what I've went through, like I think that really opens it up and gives them more confidence to speak about like things they're going through, asking for help. And like a lot of the times, like they might not want to go speak with someone. So like I'll just send them, like give them, write down their email for them. Like, cause it may be, a lot of people don't like the interaction of like face to face. So I think it's really good just to like talk about my past experiences, like just open up and just let them feel welcome to talk to me.
Right, thank you. It's great that the students you're working with have a point of contact. We always talk a lot about having like a coach. So you have your academic advisor, but who's that other person answering the other questions about navigating campus and resources? So your students are also lucky to be working with you all. One of the questions that came in the chat is how does your college or university let students know about the resources? So you're new on campus, how does someone find you or any of the other resources on your campus or with your community partners as well?
We have, oh, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
We have like Snap alerts that you can sign up for like once you enroll in classes, and like they send text messages, emails multiple times a month, once a week usually, just to like keep students updated. There's flyers and posters hung up all around the campus. Just anything like that. As soon as you walk into our enrollment center, there's multiple brochures, things like that. That's how we kind of keep everyone updated on just the resources we have available.
I just kind of want to piggyback on what Chelsea just said. Also, I said your name right, didn't I? Hope so. Yeah, like where I work at now, I'm in admissions, so I'm first contact when people come in, and of course I speak to everybody. You know, you got to engage people. You got to make them feel comfortable when they first walk in. So that's one way we do it, and we have like flyers and stuff up, and also have like a little pamphlet with information in it that I may hand out. But there's other resources that aren't on that pamphlet. So when students have questions, they know they can contact me at 2, 3, 4 in the morning. They don't want to respond because I'm a night person. So I'm always in our app and stuff looking for ways I can help people. And that's one way that we keep students informed with a lot of information and stuff.
I mean, of course, when students first get on campus, we have, our Colonel crew. So that's like a peer-on-peer small group. So they're already introducing resources to students, walking them, doing campus tours. It's a little bit more personal than your one you get when you're thinking about going to your set college or whatever. But the student life first year experience office that we work in, we're kind of that go-to resource, because even if we don't know the answer, students are automatically drawn to this broad title, student life, first year experience. They're like, they may have the answer. And even if that's not necessarily housed within our department, we're kind of that go-to. So kind of just being aware of the other resources on campus, even if that's not your set department, you're available and willing to connect students. Melanie, I know you said, making that connection of walking students over. So making that personal connection as well. And then when students come into Colonel's Cupboard, if they're kind of talking about some other outside resources that they may need help with, I already have a community resource pamphlet that I'm able to give them and talk to them about, or students have questions. I'm on my computer Googling, on campus or outside campus resources, writing emails down, just kind of making that personal connection to students, I think is really important, and saying, hey, I'll look into it for you, instead of just saying it's on a website somewhere.
Thank you. So what
Also, Melanie, sorry. Also, Melanie, here on our campus, we have success coaches, and they have a plethora of resources that are available to our students. That has been a big help since the start of the program, which I've noticed myself, as well as, first year students are non-traditional like myself come in, because, it's hard to navigate if you've never been on the campus before. So them success coaches, they have been helping a lot of students as far as finding resources with childcare, food, transportation, you name it. Having them in place has been a big help here. That's all I wanted to add. Sorry.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine. This is all good information. Keep it coming. So as in your experiences as a student, and because you talk to so many students, what are some of the campus or community resources that have had the greatest impact on student success, or your success and well-being, but also the students that you're working with?
A resource that I utilized during my undergrad was career counseling. That was a really good academic resource for me, not kind of just trying to figure out what did I want to do with my career path that I was in, how can I use it in the future. So that was really valuable to me, because that kind of put into perspective, why am I at college? What am I going to do? That was a resource that I utilized. And then as far as, those resources that I'm helping students in this, my more professional side of things, just making sure that I'm, fulfilling my role as best as I can, and having all of the knowledge and resources that I can utilize to then help those other students find any other resources that they need, if it's not directly within my office.
The resources that I utilize a lot here, the tutoring center here at Maysville, that's helped me a lot. Just a lot of the times, I get overwhelmed with a bunch of work, and everything's just mismatching together. I just get a lot of confused easily. That's helped me. Our transfer center here is excellent. Considering I want to transfer eventually, after I've got my RN license here. They help me a lot, just juggling where's the best place to transfer to, making sure I have my classes lined up, just to make sure I'm doing everything that I need to do on my end. Those have helped me a lot. A lot of the time students come in, they need help. A lot of people's came in, they didn't finish high school. They need to get their GED, or they've had their GED. They just need to find what they got on it, if they passed, things like that. I transfer a lot of students there. And then our Veterans Affairs here, that's a big, I think at least one student comes in every day just wanting to talk about that. So that's a really big hit here at Maysville.
Yeah, touch off of what Chelsea just said as well. Veteran Affairs, Disability Services, all those are really great hits here. But what has helped me has been, we had our tutoring lab here at one time. That was a big help for me, especially with statistics. I mean, oh Lord, but that was something that really helped me out, was the tutoring, and just having somebody that I could kind of just sit down and talk with, that was a big help with me. I mean, that's really it. I mean, like I said, they both pretty much summed it up, because it sounds like we all kind of have some of the same resources in place. So
Perfect. Thank you. Yep, those resources we talk to students all the time, and are consistent across the board of what students are accessing. Are there things that are missing or that you wish were offered? If you had a magic wand, or like, this is the resource that we really need to support student basic needs, your well-being as a student, what would that be?
for me, I feel like it should be some more in-depth training for faculty and staff when it comes to diversity, learning how to navigate through the cultures of different ethnic groups and stuff. That way you can meet students where they're at, instead of just trying to, just push it along. I mean, for me, I think more training is necessary, for all students. That way you don't just have one group that, is doing one thing, the other group is feeling like, what am I doing here? Make sure everybody's included. I mean, that's just how I see things. I like to see everybody included, because I believe in unity as being the key for any college. I don't care where you're at. In order for it to grow, everybody needs to feel included.
I think like one thing, like it's not like a really big like problem or anything like that, but like homelessness, like just things like that. Like I know we have like resources around our community here, but like a lot of people, like even if they're leaving like a domestic like issue, like things like that, like I just think like transportation, a lot, just things like, I know we don't have a bunch of that, but I mean, there are like a select students like that do need help with things like that. And I just think if we have a little bit more resources to help them out, they won't be as like shy to come ask. Because like I could just see like a bunch of students, they don't want to come into our enrollment center and just ask about that. But like if we have like resources that are posted and emails sent out, I think that would help a lot.
That's the only problem with emails, though. In the times that we live in, emails aren't very effective. I reach a lot of students through social media. Like that's how I reach a lot of students. It's how I get information out to students is via social media, whether it be Facebook, whether it be Instagram, whether it be Twitter. A lot more students respond faster to social media or a text, not just no mass text, but like a personal text. Like they're like, "Oh yeah, what's up?" They hit you right back. And that's one way that that's worked for me, to reach a lot of students, is those ways.
I do agree with Daryl, and just, finding how are you going to connect with students, and where do students respond to the most. Whenever we do like little updates about the cupboard, I always do a social media post, because I know students are going to see something on Instagram faster than they're going to check an email or something. But then the question, as far as like maybe what are some other resources that could be available? This isn't really in place, but I had a student asking me the other day, like, is there someone on campus that really focuses on like helping students apply for SNAP or some of those other resources? And I was like, I don't think so. And so I tried to do the best I could in trying to find some more information. But a few minutes back, there was something about like if there was like a community resource like person that was like kind of dedicated to helping with other community-based resources, either on campus or off campus. I think that would be really valuable. Someone that kind of specializes in helping students set up any type of transportation stuff, or questions about housing or SNAP or some of those other government assistance, or, ways to utilize scholarships, things like that. I think that would be a really valuable resource, because it kind of in small little increments falls on other faculty and staff, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But having someone that's really dedicated to knowing those resources on campus or off campus or government assistance, things like that could be really helpful.
Perfect. And then, so another question that I have for you, and for everyone that's listening in, if you do have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat box. We'll be working through your questions in just a second. I know a few of you have talked a little bit about accessing community resources. I'm wondering what that process looked like for you as a student, but also as someone working on your campuses. Was that a relationship that you went and sought out, or did you already have those connections? What is that process like?
I know she was talking about like the community resources as far as SNAP benefits and stuff like that. I pulled that information up, from various websites and stuff, and I would have it ready for the students or anybody that needs it. Because one of the areas that I live in, a lot of people depend on, benefits to help them, with their families, because we are in some strange times right now, dealing with COVID and everything else. More people are needing these resources. So having them readily available for them has been great, has helped a lot of people.
Could you repeat the question? Was it like we found resources, or?
Yeah, just establishing partnerships with community resources or accessing those resources. Was that already there when you got there and you were introduced, or did you seek out those partnerships because you knew they were needed?
So for us, for Colonel's Cupboard, some community partnerships is working with our local food bank, like within the community. While there is a food bank in the community, I do think it's incredibly valuable to have one on campus. You're going to reach a different population than what's available in the community. Also, we are able to have more flexible hours than what a community-based food bank is. I think they're like Monday through Wednesday, 9 to 12. That's not good times for students. But based on kind of like our health codes and everything, when we have a very strict expired food policy, all of that based on our health codes, but the health codes that community-based food banks follow are slightly different. So any food that is going to go out of date soon, we donate to another food bank. So no food is really going to waste. So sustainability is really important to us, and making sure that we're trying to eliminate food waste as much as possible, while also supporting our students here and then the broader Richmond community as well. So, but that was already in place when Colonel's Cupboard was kind of founded, which was 2014. So that was a community partnership that they founded pretty early on.
I love that you keep giving even after it reaches your campus. There's someone else to give it to. I really like that. Could you all talk a little bit about the process for students accessing those student basic need resources? So is it an application? Do they just come in and talk to you? What does that look like? And if there was something that you could change, if there is anything, what would that be? Like a quicker application process, or what would that look like?
Okay, I know with me, I do a live with D second Tuesday of each month here at HCTC, and that opens up the doors for resources for students, so they know where to come at to get them. And it's not usually an application fee they have to do for like resources for food and stuff like that. But if they want SNAP benefits, then they do have to do an application for that. And I just kind of just point them in the right direction. And a lot of the times with that live, it gets shared so much, and so people reach out that otherwise wouldn't have, because they've already built that rapport with me, and they either know me, via social media, or they see me out in the community doing various things. I work real closely with the Food and Faith Coalition in our town, as well as the Appalachian Art Alliance, promoting cultural things within the community, like the poetry slams and art shows that we've had here, that has brought community awareness and community gatherings out. And we kind of give them resources while we're there as well. People come out, give them resources, meet up with them. Hey, we got this going on. come see me, and that's how we make things happen here. And like I mentioned before, the Live with D has been a great benefit. People yell my name. I'm like, yo, who are you? They're like, oh, I'm so and so, but you can help me do this. Okay, let's make it happen. And we just get them on in there, and it's been a big help. And I enjoy doing them because they're unscripted. You can just be yourself, but you're getting that information out there to the students, and you're telling the story and the perspective from the student side, so they see that it's not all suits and ties, and you ain't got to be serious all the time. They can get in and kind of be themselves and just have fun.
Yeah, it makes a world of difference because I remember being a student and thinking like, oh, another webinar, another meeting, but framing it in the way that you just said is like, oh, let me stop by and see what you're talking about. You get students in the door, so meeting students where they are. Chelsea, Madeline, did you have anything to add?
So I haven't been working in the enrollment center very long, started last July. So I haven't had really anyone come in and ask me personally about our help with basic needs, but I just know we have so many resources here at Maysville. There's just multiple things. We have a food pantry, and it's not just the college that's doing the food pantries. Around the community, there's multiple blessing boxes, things like that, and the high schools around help with that as well. And if they need gas cards, I think we've done things like that, because that's a basic need in today's world. You can't really go and do a lot if you don't have transportation. So that's a big thing here at Maysville. And just multiple things, if they just need help with housing, things like that, we have people here on our campus that help people with that kind of stuff. So
Students mainly access our resource through our website, where we have a request assistance form. So they click on that, and that sends them to Engage, which I don't know if I think other campuses may use this, but it's kind of our one-stop shop for other forms and RSVP things to other events. But I created a form on there which asks some basic questions, name, major, just some data stuff that is important for us and for our grants and AmeriCorps stuff. So they'll fill out an online application that gets sent to me. I review it, and then they have the option of either creating an appointment time or just stopping in during our walk-in hours. And they'll specify that in their request form. And so then I send them an email saying, received your application. I'll see you, feel free to walk in anytime during operational walk-in hours, or set up an appointment with them. Sometimes if people have been here before, they'll just email me directly to set up an appointment, or sometimes students just show up at our student life desk. So even if it's not walk-in hours or it's not appointment hours, and they're here, so I'm not going to send them away and say, hey, come back during our walk-in hours. So we'll serve students that way as well. So kind of three main ways, but our main way that we send students to is through our online application form.
Those are all great ideas and ways of supporting students. I think you're all meeting students where they are. You have a variety of ways to get in contact with you and to access those resources. I have two more questions for you. So one is, how have, in the midst of COVID and the pandemic, what are some of the changes you've seen in what you need as a student, but also the students that you're working with student entertaining to student basic needs support? If there were any changes at all.
Oh, there's been major changes since COVID. Oh my goodness. Mental health is one of the biggest things that I've noticed that has affected a lot of students, not just on our campus, but throughout the nation. I mean, mental health has been on an increase since COVID happened. A lot of people are extroverted that are being forced to be introverted now, and it's tearing their mental health up. So we have a program here called TAO, and it's a great idea for it. Give somebody the chance to access mental health. They don't have to speak to nobody. They can all do it virtually. And then having somebody can come and sit down and talk with, whether it be another student or whether it be a staff or faculty member that the student can trust. is a great thing. And, you never know who a student's going to connect with, whether it be faculty, staff, another student, maintenance, but have everybody available and willing to sit down and talk with another student has been a big help with, a few of our students that have sought after help for mental health. But mental health, the whole stigma behind it is, it's sad because a lot of people who suffer from mental health, they're scared to get help because they don't want to be ridiculed. And it's not really good, especially with males, Black males in general. We always had that thing, we can't admit, we have depression. We can't admit that we have anxiety because it's a sign of weakness. And now with more people having these mental health issues, younger people, I'm starting to see an increase with people starting to get help. And like I mentioned before, the TAL program that we have in place it's been a huge help. I wish more people would access it, but I noticed that the few that has, it has helped them tremendously.
I know during the pandemic, we saw an increase from like our counseling center on doing some online Zoom kind of counseling, emotional support type group. So I think that was really helpful. On my side of things, I took this position in July of last year. So I kind of came in on the tail end of a lot of COVID stuff where we were already doing more in-person stuff. But in the beginning, when, I guess that was spring 2020, when suddenly there was like no one on campus, these issues didn't go away. So finding ways to still support students, even though we couldn't do walk-in hours, or they couldn't always come and just shop our selection of stuff. I know the Vista that was here before, they were doing a lot more like pre-made food boxes, and they were putting them in dorms or other like pickup locations on campus, where people would make appointments directly to come pick up from our office. So find ways to still connect, because these basic needs don't go away. In fact, they probably increase when you have a pandemic or when you have other stressors in your life. So I know that was at least something that they were doing. They were making more food boxes instead of having students come in and shop. So a little different in than how that process usually worked, but still connecting with students and trying to find ways to meet them where they at and see what needs they need that we can help them with.
Here at Maysville, just to bounce off what Madeline said. So we did food boxes here as well, because it was a lot easier for someone just to like stop by, grab a box, everything just already be like in a box made up for them. And a big thing once the pandemic hit, like a bunch of our like classes went online. Like you weren't coming in person anymore and being face to face with professors and students, things like that. And once that hit, a lot of people did, like a lot of the students did get stressed out, because like I know there's a bunch, it's not just younger kids here at Maysville, like you have older people, maybe not really very well, like works well with technology. Some people don't have laptops, things like that. So we provided them with that here at Maysville, like in our parking lots, since people weren't allowed to come into the building, we made sure that you could like reach the internet, like in our parking lots. So it was a lot easier and kind of got a little stress off of them, like didn't have to worry about being able to access their classes using internet. They can just come here, sit in their car, work on their classes with the just the stuff that we provided them with. So that helped a lot.
All amazing ideas, especially the internet idea I had not heard of or thought of making it accessible from the parking lot, because it is still available. So I wanted to ask, in one closing question, your one piece of advice or thing that you would like to share with, you're joined by faculty, staff, leadership, and key stakeholders from campuses across Kentucky. So what's that one piece of advice as a student that you would offer them, or thing that you would want them to consider as they move forward in really scaling student basic needs support at their institutions?
One thing I want to share is just be open and be willing to meet students where they're at, because everybody learns differently. And that's one of the big things that I've noticed, some students get in classes that they're not ready for because, their learning styles are different. Just be open, be willing to sit down and meet the students where they're at in order for them to succeed.
My piece of advice, just be mindful of just like the students here. A lot of them during this pandemic, they have to work a lot more than they're used to. So just be mindful of that. They're working families. They're not most of the people, they're just not coming to school and that's it. They have a part-time job, a full-time job. Just make sure you're mindful of things like that.
Yeah, I think being mindful is a really good way to put it. I think the idea of like a traditional student has somewhat shifted. So students that we're seeing on campus aren't always students right out of high school. A lot of them, I think a number that I had seen was 1 in 5 students care for a child or single parents, things like that. So you have people that are working or have dependents, things like that. So being able to be mindful of that and to work with students and their schedule. I think we can all kind of tell the difference when a student's just slacking off or when a student is putting in the effort, and how can we work and just be real with them. They're human. They have other things outside of school and classes, and being able to be mindful of that and kind of working with them, meeting them where that's really important.
Yeah, I want to just add one more thing to the closing. Also, like the area I live in, there's a bunch of hollows. Well, let me rephrase it, a bunch of hollers. And people live up in those and they don't have internet access like you would think everybody else does, or they don't have transportation to get out to it. So when campuses are closed, just be mindful of that and just try to work with them students as best as you can. Because a lot of them, they want to make it, but when they're forced to kind of stay in, it kind of deters them. So just be mindful and just work with those students any way you can.
Well, thank you all so much. I think this has been phenomenal. So if you want to unmute and give a round of applause to our phenomenal panelists, I do want to stress that we have students on our campuses that we could talk to all the time. And so make sure that you're having conversations with your students as well. I think this is a great starting place. You've shared invaluable insight, tips, advice, ideas. And so I just want to thank you so, so much for joining us today. I want to quickly share my screen one last time, just to share a few resources that we have at Complete College America for you all to access as you're on this journey to scale your student success efforts. And so I'll drop the links in the chat, but you have the option of creating a profile on our website at completecollege.org. We have tons of free resources on there, toolkits, publications, strategy toolkits. We host a bunch of webinars. We have podcasts where we've talked about student basic needs support and equity work. There's a directory. So if you have friends or colleagues in other states that are doing great work that you want to connect with, we probably have their contact information on our website. You can get in touch with them there, as well as other people within the state of Kentucky. We host different events, workshops, and convenings, hopefully in person if COVID behaves. And then you're also able to connect with the CCA team. So I'm your point of contact at CCA because I work with Kentucky closely. I'll drop my email address in the chat box for you all, but just letting you know that those resources do exist. We're also on social media. So if you want to connect with us there, please feel free to do so, especially on LinkedIn or Twitter. And last but not least, you have my email address and my Twitter on the screen, should you want to reach out to me. I want to turn it over to Lily to kind of queue up our communities of practice time. Then I'll hop back on and show you how to work the activity that we're doing.
Thanks, Melanie. Well, thank you so much, our student panel. That was really incredible, insightful, and I took a lot of notes myself on some really great ways that we can hopefully provide more awareness and direct peer-to-peer resources around student basic needs support. Our next 30 minutes is going to be in our communities of practice. And so we're going to do about 3 breakout groups. We're going to have students in each one of those breakout groups. And it's just going to be a much more informal opportunity for everyone to just continue this conversation. And we will, from the collaborative's perspective, we'll be taking some notes, and we do have some guiding questions in the event that we need to stir the pot. But I have a feeling that we'll have great conversation as soon as we get into our breakout rooms. And so I hope that you'll stick with us for the next couple of minutes.
So let me share my screen. When you get into your breakout room, you will have a link to a Miro board, which is an engagement tool that we like to use here at CCA since we don't have flip chart paper on Zoom. And so here you'll get a link to it. You're able to add Post-it notes. We've added a few for you already, so you can just click them and type on them. But we're asking you to just start thinking about from this conversation, what can you continue doing? So what would help you move forward? What are you already doing that's phenomenal? What's holding you back currently? So what are those things that you want to stop? What are things that you want to do differently or invent or implement? And then what are your next action steps? So we're all about taking the things and moving to action right away instead of leaving it here on today's webinar. So what are your next steps that you plan to take within your role or on your campuses? And so there will be someone from the collaborative in each room to answer any questions that you might have. I'll also be bouncing around as well. So I will open up the breakout rooms for about 25 minutes. You'll have a countdown, and then we'll bounce back here for closing remarks. Let me get those going for you.
Am I unmuted? Okay. Thank you, everybody, so much for joining us today. And I hope that your breakout conversation was as fruitful as ours. We are going to continue this series here, Student Basic Needs with Complete College America, through the end of March. We have, I think, some additional great topics coming up. The next one is on it's really on emergency aid programs, I promise. The title in the registration looks a little different now, but let me just tell you, the organization, The Last Mile, is amazing. And they are really speaking, I think, to so many different people on your campus. They're speaking to fundraisers who are trying to communicate why emergency aid is so helpful to students. And they're also going to be talking about how to remove the hoops and the barriers for students to really access this resource quickly, efficiently, and in the way that they need it. So I hope that you can join us. And if it doesn't work for you, or it's not really your area of work, please share it with your colleagues. We're definitely going to be focusing on scaling mental health, which was a definite hot topic in today's conversation with students, and also how to leverage those community social benefit programs like SNAP or other mental health services in our community, and other resources. And then finally, we're growing, I would say, our support for student basic needs really incredibly on our campuses. How are we also measuring the impact of those resources on our students? How are we measuring how that is helpful to them in continuing toward their academic goals? And so that really is how we make the case for investing more in these programs down the road. So I hope that you'll be able to join us for the remainder of this series. In the follow-up email, I will send a direct link to the Impact Exchange, where we invite you to join our colleagues across the state in sharing, sparking ideas, sparking conversation, sharing resources that have been really helpful for you. And this is really just getting started. So we're going to be the ground floor here, Student Basic Needs, Community of Practice. And I hope that you'll really join us. And then finally, please save the date for the Student Success Summit, which will be taking place this spring, April 11 and 12. There will be a lot more information coming out very soon with an official save the date, registration link, etc. But just put it on your calendars. We hope you'll be able to join us. And the last thing is if registration or information about this webinar series came to you via a colleague, or maybe you stumbled upon it on social media, please take a second and go to the Collaborative's website, kystudentsuccess.org, to join our newsletter. We send out a monthly newsletter that gives you all of the things that are coming up with great resources and information. So we hope that we can stay in touch with you. That is all that I have. How do I get out of this share screen?
Perfect. Thank you, Lily, and thank you everyone for attending. I dropped the link to the registration for future webinars. Should you have any questions, you have all of our email addresses, and please feel free to reach out with any questions. Again, thank you to our phenomenal panelists, and we will see you in a couple of weeks. Thank you.